Welcome to the Climbing the Charts podcast. I'm Angie Lawless, and I'm here with my co-host, Brandon Miller.
Today, we are honored and excited to welcome John Ingram as our guest on this very special episode of Climbing the Charts. We do not have enough time here today to detail John's past business or philanthropic accomplishments. We want to focus on his newest chapter, which is the majority owner of the Nashville Soccer Club, aka Nashville SC, as well as focus on who John is and his roots. Most of our listeners will be familiar with John Ingram, but a brief bio is still in order. John is a Nashville native who was educated at MBA at Montgomery Bill Academy, earned his BA at Princeton, and then went on to earn an MBA at the Owen School at Vanderbilt. While he's been based in Nashville for much of his career, he's also spent significant time and conducted business in California and Belgium. Here you were there most of the 90s.
I was, both of those places. Very interesting experiences. Yeah,
it sounds really interesting. Today, John serves as the chair of Ingram Content Group, Lightning Source, and Digital Ingram, as well as Ingram Industries.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make sure.
All right, we're doing good.
Too many titles, right?
A lot of titles.
All right, but John's role in bringing Major League Soccer to Music City may be one of the best stories yet, and it's a story that deserves a proper telling. For his work in the space and his role as chairman of Vanderbilt Athletics, John has been named Tennessean Sports Person of the Year in 2017 and was honored last year as the Tennessean of the Year by the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. In 2017, Nashville was considered an afterthought for landing an MLS team. There were 12 teams that submitted bids in January of 2017. Now we have the largest soccer-specific stadium in the United States, and much of the world tuned in to watch Nashville play Inter Miami CF and Messi in the League's Cup final, which happened on August 19, 2023. While Nashville fell just short in an incredible game with an incredible shootout ending, it was, for many, the most exciting sports event we've seen since the Music City Miracle in 1999. Celebrities were in abundance, street vendors were selling Takis, and the game, like most SC games, was beyond sold out, with many ticket prices exceeding those of Taylor Swift at Nissan Stadium.
So how did you feel about the ending of the game?
Oh my God! It's bittersweet. I mean, I was so proud. I think I was mostly proud because I'd heard a lot of noise during the week because I knew ticket prices were through the roof, right? And that they were like, oh, they're not going to be Nashville fans. It's going to be people that support Messi or Miami. And to be there, clearly, in my opinion, at least 80% of the stadium was there cheering. Was there in our colors, were cheering for Nashville. I was beyond proud. I would have loved to win, but I mean, at that point when you're in penalty kicks, when the goalies are kicking, I mean, you could flip a coin at that point as to what win or lose, whether you win or lose. But I was immensely proud of my city.
Yeah, we were too.
Yeah.
It is amazing that it did end on goalie kick.
Crazy.
I mean, it was
almost never happens.
Incredible. Well, welcome to the show, John, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Nashville is so blessed, I think, to have you here. When we were writing our book, we had reached out to you and said, hey, can you take a read of some sections before it goes to print? And I mean, not only did you read and give us your feedback, but you responded immediately and have kind of continued to help us through our exploration of Nashville. And I think once again, the people of Nashville, and in this instance, you in particular, never cease to amaze me. So thank you for that.
Well, you're very kind.
Yeah, it's true.
Because this is Music City, we like to start this out with an easy one. In the words of Chris Stapleton, what are you listening to?
What am I listening to, music-wise?
Music-wise.
Oh, God, I mean, I would say mostly, I'm kind of eclectic, but if I think about what's on my dial, from a music standpoint, I mean, it's everything from classic rock to the 70s, 80s, less the 90s. I mean, I guess it's pop, but I kind of move all over the place. Yeah. In terms of what I like, and I I like some country, but I think if you had to nail me, I still think the 70s and 80s had the best music.
Yeah. Do you go for a more chill vibe, or do you go for?
It depends on the moment. I mean, there's like the bridge if you need chill, or something like that, or it's why I kind of pop around.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit eclectic.
Yeah, I like that. So yeah,
and punctuated usually in the morning with Bloomberg and Squawk Box, CNBC. That's kind of part of my morning ritual is to get up early. We have a little gym in the basement, and I'll have a cup of coffee, and then I'll go down there and work out, stretch, do stuff, and kind of catch up on the business news. So by the time it's 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to go.
What time do you get up?
It depends, but usually probably between 5:30 and 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I always find that interesting, because the most successful people that we run across, it never comes from just like luck or where you ended up in life. It's hard work and consistency and discipline.
My definition of luck, and I kind of got a version of it from my dad, but my definition of luck is the intersection of opportunity with preparation.
Yeah.
Because what's an opportunity if you're not prepared to take advantage of it?
Right.
And if that's my definition of luck, is you got to be prepared for it.
Right.
And to what you just said, Angie, I don't care who you are. I mean, it takes some work to be prepared.
Yeah. Very well said.
Right. So, John, you've been described as a leading industrialist in one publication I've seen. And yet at Princeton, you studied English and, kind of liberal arts. Your mother, Martha, I remember when I did a program a long time ago called the Nashville Emerging Leaders Program. I remember she came to our class and spoke. That was the first exposure I'd ever, had to her. But, obviously she had a passion for the arts. And your father too was a leading industrialist. But if you hadn't pursued the business path, what would you have done for a career?
It's interesting it's an interesting question. I think what I actually really am, I'm an entrepreneur. I just work in a big family business, and I've kind of, we're all on a path of self-discovery, right? Kind of peeling the onion back, and
why don't we come with manuals?
Oh gosh, well, each one of them would be different. We'd have to print those on demand because they would be different for each one of us. But
I know where we could get that done.
To be described as an industrialist, I don't really think I'm an industrialist. I mean,
what is an industrialist?
I don't know exactly, but
I think it means someone who's the chair of a lot of companies that do a lot of different things.
Okay, and maybe one of our businesses is marine transportation. Yep. Barging bulk commodities up and down the Mississippi River system. Even though my older brother really that's kind of his main space, and but. I think of myself more as an entrepreneur, and I've just in this path of self-discovery. I mean, why do I think that? It's because I'm attracted to. I mean, my life purpose, and I kind of figured that out. It would be, I'm all about kind of exploiting the potential. Maximizing, actualizing potential is probably the right way to say it. And what's an entrepreneur? It's somebody that falls in love with an idea and then figures out, how do you create that?
Right.
And most people look at a situation and go, oh my God, I could fail. This is hard. I don't know. There's safer things to do, and I think entrepreneurs are by nature optimists. Now you got to be a realist. You got to look at things for what they really are. But I think you can still be an entrepreneur and an optimist and look at things realistically and go, okay, I see how this may not work, but what if it does?
Right.
And I think, you know, the entrepreneur says, okay, I see the risk, but I'm going to go for it anyway. And,
Well,
that's how I mean, that's how I kind of feel. I mean, and not just soccer. And I know you want to get back to that, but things like in our content business back, you know, 25 years ago, I started what has become a really important part of our business, print on demand, you know, where, and that was hard. And it took years for that to work. And, you know, it went through stages, like an early stage, which was kind of cool and everybody liked it. And then there was this middle stage where we need to put a bunch of money in it. Digital emerged as a possibility, and was kind of confronted with the idea, okay, do we believe digital is going to be important or not? And I was like, I think we've got to spend extra money and make a capability to be able to do full ebook downloads, because I think digital will be important, and how can we not do it? Well, digital didn't work right away, okay? And so print on demand was still early and struggling, and let's just say I wasn't very popular for for a couple of years, because we'd invested a bunch of money and this was happening. And then a year or two after that, all of a sudden print on demand was clear it was going to work and was working, and digital was coming but still slow. But all of a sudden, different members of my family, different parts of our organization, talking about our success. I'm like going, what do you mean our? You would get ready to tar and feather me and
Right.
like drag me to the edge of town and like banish me.
Right.
And but I learned something really important, and that is that as the leader, I own failure. If we're successful, we share success. But it's really true. Is that success is shared, and failure belongs to the leader. And having that kind of clarity has been helpful to me, because if I'm okay with the risk of failure, then okay. Let's go for it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, and not just in business, but just in your personal life as well. Where on the risk spectrum do you fall? Because that is one of the key qualities I see in an entrepreneur. It's like there's so many people that have great ideas. It's just one person's willing to jump, and then the other person says, "I think I'll wait."
Well, look, I mean, entrepreneurs are willing to take risks. I mean, you have to be. But I'm a huge believer, and I kind of have a good sense of what my competencies are, and so where I've been successful, it's where I've been able to get great people, to help me execute on what I'm trying to do. I mean, anybody that wants to say I, you just. That's not me.
Right.
To me, I understand how important so many other people in any of these endeavors have been to our success. Okay, yeah, I'm the flag. I may be the flag bearer. I may be the catalyst. I may be, the one that's ultimately, if it doesn't work, responsible. But it's success is a team sport.
Yeah. Very much so. Okay, so if my math is correct, your father, Bronson, moved with the family to Nashville from St. Paul when he was 17. And then
No, I mean, actually, he moved when he was the family moved. My grandparents moved when my dad and his siblings were little. I mean,
Okay.
they were in grade school.
Okay.
I mean, from St. Paul.
Okay.
It was one particularly cold winter, where the cars wouldn't start, nothing would work, and I think my grandfather threw his hands up and basically said, the only thing that is fit to live here is a polar bear, and I'm not one of those. And actually, they had my grandparents had come down to visit Nashville because somehow my grandfather had bought an interest in an early rug making business, something that was called tufting, a company called Tennessee Tufting. And so they'd come down here, really liked it, met people that they liked, and when it got that cold, and my grandfather, decided to move. I mean, they kept a summer home up on a lake up in just outside of St. Paul, and moved to Nashville.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then you were born here, and
No,
so
I was actually, my older brother Orrin and I were both born in New Orleans. But
born in New Orleans.
yeah, but my parents moved to Nashville when I was 3 months old.
Oh, wow.
I think I teased my mom. I said, I think the idea of having a bunch of boys, ripping around Bourbon
Orleans,
Street.
yeah.
It was, as teenagers, you kind of waved off that opportunity.
So they got you out of there early.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us, like, what was it like? We talked about this a little bit before we got started today, but what was it like, growing up with your mom and dad? What were they like?
Well, I was very fortunate to have, very accomplished parent. They were not only accomplished, but they were good parents, and they were a good balance for each other. My father, probably more of a disciplinarian, my mother kind of sweeping up behind to make sure things didn't get, too far, this way or that way. But they both modeled the way they behaved, my siblings, my two brothers and my sister and I kind of all grew up with the idea to whom a lot was given, a lot was expected. And so, my parents really modeled a behavior of being industrious and not kind of a, ne'er-do-well, but also with a sense of responsibility to community and whatnot. And, I think, as a parent, it matters a whole lot less. It's less what you say; it's what you do, and what you model. And I mean, I hope as a parent that's the case. But I believe it's true. Is it you want your words to be consistent with what your actions are, and my dad was obviously successful in business. My mother could have been. She was successful in the philanthropic area. In the 70s, she led the charge building the Tennessee Performing Arts Center. And, in order to make that happen, I mean, she had to go around the state and raise an endowment, which in the 70s was, for a woman leading that was really quite something. And then, the Schermerhorn and whatnot, which is, such a gift to the city. And yeah, I mean, we were all fortunate to have parents that were not only good parents, but really, really good role models.
Any favorite kind of childhood Nashville stories?
Favorite childhood Nashville stories?
Where did you, what did you do on the weekends? Where did you go eat? What did you?
I had cousins. My father had two sisters that lived here, and I grew up riding ponies, playing on farms, riding my bike to go play golf or tennis. We could ride our bikes anywhere.
Right.
But grew up, outdoors. Whether it was in the countryside or, before video games, you invented stuff to do, games to play in the backyard.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I still love being outside.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be outside all the time, but if you ask me, that would be my preference.
Are you a big golfer or?
Well, I used to be. I'm still a competitive horseback rider. I still do that. I keep saying when I quit that, eventually I'll go back to golf, but I also love pickleball. If I'm, which is fantastic. I was probably more of a tennis player than anything else, and pickleball is. I mean, if ping pong and tennis had babies, it would be pickleball. So I really quite like it. So anyway. Almost anything outdoors is okay with me.
I was just thinking how I've got two girls that are, 5th grade and 8th grade, and they just can't imagine the world that doesn't have iPads. Like, they'll be like, I'm so bored if I don't have a computer device. And I just think about how different it was.
Oh, my God.
My childhood, too, was kind of in the, rural East Tennessee. Just, you had to entertain yourself.
Yes.
And use your imagination.
And your parents kind of had a sense where you might be, but not necessarily.
Right.
And
Be home before dark.
yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'd no more let my kids do that in the Man in the Moon. But anyway, it was a bit of a different time.
Well, you know, speaking of the outdoors, Brandon, in your childhood, do you think that John may have also had a pet skunk, or was that just you?
I did not have a pet skunk. My younger brother David had snakes. I mean, boa constrictors and ball pythons. I'll never forget. I mean, a crazy story. My younger brother, literally, my parents had to go be interviewed by this woman that owned this snake to make sure that she thought that they would be properly responsible for it in order to get it for my younger brother David for Christmas when he was a little kid.
Oh my gosh! But
know,
they got it for him.
Yeah,
wow.
they did. Yeah.
My
mother was a pretty good sport about all that stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother had a Burmese python, which was not a good pet. And at the point where it was like 15 feet long, we finally
Found another home for it.
It seems wise.
That was, yeah.
Okay.
So kind of, bring this back a little bit. Obviously we talked a little bit about, just kind of, your longstanding relationship with Vanderbilt, the sports community. And, we'll talk a little bit more about the soccer team in a minute. But, kind of bringing it back to your mom, she was named by Business Week as one of the top 50 most generous philanthropists in the country. Obviously, kind of that idea of really having modeling behavior that, really, I think, shapes all of those around her. But tell us a little bit about just sort of, what that impact was like in terms of the arts with you. Like, how much did that impact sort of your vision for the importance of the arts?
Well, I mean, probably one of we tease my mom. You're kind of like 0 for 4 in your children for people that really have your passion for the arts. I have passion for sports and others for other things. But, what I would say is we all have a passion for giving back, and I think it really starts in a major way. Unfortunately, my dad died in 1995, 1 year older than I am right now, which is kind of always hard for me to kind of wrap my brain around. But when he died, it really kind of unlocked a huge philanthropic opportunity. The short version is, after he died, we went through an exercise where we valued all the different pieces of our business and kind of rejiggered some of the ownership such that each of us had primary ownership where we were going to be spending time. In my case, it was books and barges. Okay. And at the end of the day, a part of our business, a microcomputer distribution business, which was kind of something that grew out of our book operation, kind of through in the 80s and 90s, and was in 1995 was $8.5 billion revenue business growing.
That was Ingram Micro.
Ingram Micro, okay. Right? Well, it became this huge charitable vehicle because I had most of my. I mean, if you think about it, I had most of my ownership in books and barges with a stub interest in Ingram Micro, and each of my siblings did that, which at the end of the day, none of us was working directly in the microcomputer business. I had worked in it myself in Southern California and in Europe, before my father died, the prior 4 or 5 years. So, and I was on the board for 20 years afterwards till we sold it. But at the end of the day, when we went through this exercise, Ingram Micro became this huge charitable vehicle because it was the largest owner was my father's estate, this Q-tip marital trust, and so it was really governed by my father's will, which said 40% to Vanderbilt and basically the rest of it to charity. And so with Ingram Micro, during this time also we spun it out, it went public. It became this real vehicle for charity, for philanthropy. I mean, it became a huge opportunity for Vanderbilt. And my mother was very nice, generous and thoughtful and forward-looking. And she basically carved each one of us into the opportunity. Basically, each gave us, if you will, a piece of it, so we could start our own foundations. And and sometimes we work together, and sometimes we work separately. But it gave each of us kind of the opportunity to kind of spread our philanthropic wings, if you will.
It's like seed funding for each of your own venture capital.
100%.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so and it's why we've been able to to impact a lot of things, primarily around Nashville, because it's where all four of us live.
Yeah. And so, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think it's hard to overestimate the impact that your mom has had on the arts community here. I mean, talk a little bit about that so that
I kid her a little bit. She's like the patron saint of arts here.
Yeah.
I mean, without question, and not so much of it would probably exist without her, with her influence, money, but probably more her leadership and her energy and passion for it, and her ability to convince other people to join with her. And the reason you have not just a wonderful symphony, which is played at Carnegie Hall and other fantastic places around the country and the world, but professional ballet, professional theater, not much of that would exist without her her leadership in that area.
What is next for her in that area?
Well, I think she's very interested. The James K. Polk building, which is where TPAC is right now, is going to get torn down. Yep. So, she is. I think one of the things she'd love to see, while she, and I hope she's here for a long time, but she'd love to see TPAC, in a new home.
There's talk of it moving to this side of the river.
Well, I think there has been, and I applaud the governor, and the mayor and others that understand that this is an important element. World-class cities have world-class arts, and one of the drawbacks for the arts is that they need help to fund themselves.
Right.
They just can't. I don't know examples that are self-sustainable.
Yeah, it's very true, though. It is a mark of a world-class city to have these.
Well, and companies look at relocating. Senior executives look at do they want to move to a company or an organization. And they're not just looking for themselves. I mean, they have spouses, they have children, they have and having lots of different entertainment options really matters. And it's the arts is right up there.
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw the CNBC special that just aired on.
I didn't see. I saw the some of the promos for it. I need to go on the website and go watch it, because
it's pretty good. It's
I
pretty
would have
good.
liked it.
It's like an hour. I mean, it is a little bit like a paid commercial for Nashville, but it's super fascinating.
Cities of Success,
yeah,
right?
Cities of Success.
And CNBC, right?
Yeah.
Started with Nashville.
That's right.
So that tells you a lot right there.
Says a lot, right? Yeah. Well, talking about spouses and what draws people to a city. Let's get back to soccer. So to follow up on his introduction, and Brandon and I have heard a little bit of this story, but it's a great story. How did Nashville get from Nashville has no chance for an MLS team to Music City as a serious soccer city?
It's not for me, but it could be. And maybe should be at some point in time an interesting story, because I don't think there's ever been another case of a major league team going from nothing to winning an expansion bid in one day short of a year. And from the day that we decided to do this, I remember clearly. I mean, the Tennessean had an article on it on December 21st, 2016, and Don Garber and Major League Soccer came to Nashville on December the 20th, 2017 to confer the club to us. I mean, literally 364 days. And I do remember when we turned in our application, January 31st, 2017. And by the way, about the time we decided to go for it, MLS decided to formalize this expansion process and make people do these formal applications. And
aren't you lucky?
Yeah. Some of these other cities had been working on this 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and we'd literally been working on it 1 month, formally. Now, in all fairness, and before we started, you mentioned Will Alexander. Yeah. Will Alexander, who at the time was chief of staff for Bill Haggerty, who was running economic development. And Bill and Will, I think Bill Haggerty had Will do some work on looking at the other 11 cities and then kind of looking at Nashville demographically against these other cities over about 30, 40 different categories. And I would describe Nashville as little but mighty in some, or smaller but mighty. And Bill was really, Bill and Will were the ones that said, we really think Nashville's a major league city. And at the time I was looking, in 2016, I started really looking at, there was another effort underway led by David Dill, Marcus Whitney, and Chris Redditch, looking at, and they had acquired like a minor league expansion franchise to the USL, and so they were of the mind that, hey, you do a good job with that, and maybe you could get promoted to Major League Soccer. So there were different approaches, and I ended up deciding to go with the hey, let's go for it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I had not intended to be the one to lead it. I really thought, well, I'll be a piece of it, and it'd be fun, but I don't know about leading this. And I kind of struggled with it for a month or two early in the fall, and I was like, oh man. I said, what this really misses is somebody that looks a lot like me.
Right. Okay.
And to really give it a certain degree of credibility in the whole thing. And like I said, I struggled with it, but I finally said, I don't know whether we can do this or not. I don't know whether we'll be successful, but I think if I don't try, I'll regret it. And just take half step back. About 10 years before, I'd been the commencement speaker at MBA, and I don't think I sweated over something as much since my senior thesis at Princeton, right? Just going, what if I have to say as a 140th speaker, commencement speaker? I mean, what in the world do I have to say that hadn't been said better 140 times, right? 139 times. And, I ended up just out of the blue, a great friend of mine ended up sending me the excerpts from a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Mm-hmm. It was a book written by a hospice nurse from Australia named Bronnie Ware, and she kept hearing these themes in her end of life work. She kept hearing themes like, I wish I'd lived a life that was right for me, not some life somebody picked out for me. And there were other ones, but I wish I had allowed myself to be happier. And basically, the gist of it was that choices matter, and that my take at the end of the day, I don't know if we can eliminate all regrets. I don't think that's really possible. But I think if we are intentional about what we do have a chance to significantly reduce regrets. So back to soccer now. I'm sitting here going, okay, whoa, I think would regret not trying. So, I said, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And when I say we, at the time, our mayor, Megan Barry, and I flew to New York and delivered our very incomplete initial application to Major League Soccer. We didn't even get to see the commissioner. We just got the deputy commissioner, right? and I've never really asked Major League Soccer to say, okay, there were 12 people applying. Where did we rank?
Right.
Because I don't know whether it was 10, 11, or 12, but we were definitely at the bottom because, Nashville was a complete afterthought. Major League Soccer, there was some soccer that was played here, but compared to what was happening in other parts of the country, it was pretty small potatoes. And, what happened over the course of that year, there were 3 or 4 key things that needed to happen. The first was organizing an ownership group. I was a great start, but it just so happened that on the Vanderbilt Board of Trust was another gentleman named Mark Wilf, and Mark and his family owned the Minnesota Vikings. And so I remember literally we had a board meeting like a week or 2 after we dropped off our application, and I showed it to Mark, and he was like, hey, we know a little bit about this. And I didn't know at the time that they'd really tried to get a franchise for Minnesota and lost out to another group, and but had done a lot of work in that area. And so, Will and our CFO and I flew up to Minneapolis because Mark invited us up. He said, look, I'd be glad to tell you what we know about it. And I thought we'd meet with a strategy guy, but ended up meeting with their whole team, their whole management team, and
wow.
and spent a really interesting afternoon kind of just getting a full fire hose of information, and turned out, I communicated with Mark to thank him about it and said, that seemed like you all were really pretty interested, and I said I don't want to be presumptuous, but if you want to be involved with this, I said I would love to have you. And so it turned out they became our largest minority investor, and then having Mark and his group with us gave us a really solid strong ownership foundation. So check that box. Then Bill Haggerty and Will had already kind of started this MLS to Nashville and started to organize the business community. And so that had some legs to it. There was the need to show MLS that Nashville would support soccer, and they gave us kind of early on a Gold Cup match that summer.
Yeah.
And they actually came down because it was over the 4th of July, and the entourage from New York came down, and we had our first lunch in the back of the smokehouse at Husk, and we were fortunate enough, both the CEOs of the Predators and the Titans came, and not only did they come, but they stood up and said very nice things, which, by the way, I don't think happens in any other city. Nashville is pretty unique in that we support each other.
George was even very vocal supporter.
Eddie George was absolutely, and then at the time Mayor Barry attended a lot of the pieces, and then kind of the match was a big success. We set a record of 48,000 people attend that match. So kind of
how nervous were you the night before?
Well, I kind of knew what the tickets out were. So I was just kind of like, you're on a fast train. You're just thinking. I'm thinking about 20 other things.
Right.
What's next and what do we do? But then one other really important piece, and it kind of gets to the point of you just never know for sure what might really resonate with somebody or a group.
Yeah.
But then Governor Bill Haslam invited us over for dinner. And the folks, the brass from MLS, I don't think had ever been invited to a governor's residence before. So the fact that all these forces were lined up here. I mean, you know, you ask what happened. I mean, we went from on the outside looking in to by the time they left on Sunday, you know, they're like, wow, you know, Nashville is pretty credible here.
Yeah.
And then kind of a couple other things were happening. You know, Atlanta had gotten a team a year or two before and was killing it. I mean, they were doing super well. So all of a sudden, you know, this sense that soccer, you know, was really viable in the South. So, you know, so tip of the hat to Arthur Blank and the Atlanta United, because it, you know, it kind of woke up folks and, you know, on Fifth Avenue, you know, in New York to, hey, you know, this is, I mean, Atlanta was a very pleasant surprise, and, you know, Nashville's not far smaller, but kind of like that. And then finally, and this is oftentimes the real separator, was stadium deal. And Megan Barry deserves a lot of credit for, you know, she really helped us kind of get a to work with council, and you know, we got a stadium deal completed by, you know, and a supermajority vote in favor of it in, you know, early November. And then that took us from
that's in 2017.
2017, right? You know, from nothing in January 1 of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which is, I'm not sure that's ever happened before either. And you know, then all of a sudden, you know, we're finalists. You know, it was Nashville, Cincinnati, Sacramento, who thought that they were the shoe-in, and Detroit. Yeah. And we all had to go up to New York for kind of final presentations, and, you know, at the end of the day, they chose us.
Well, you know what I think is really cool about that I didn't know is, you know, I don't know that Mayor Barry gets enough credit for everything that she did to get the team.
Well, you know, something happened after that I think is kind of feeds into that.
Right.
I mean, my belief, and I never really discussed this with her, but this is what I believe, is that, you know, it wasn't that Mayor Barry was in love with bringing another professional sport to Nashville. That wasn't really it. But what was different is that soccer's a world sport.
Yes.
And you know, Nashville has sneaky large foreign-born communities on the periphery.
If you don't believe it, go to a game, right?
We'll go to a match, but go down Nolensville Pike if you don't believe it, right? And
you have the largest Kurdish population in the United States.
Correct. And I think what got her attention was this was a way to kind of connect, if you will, traditional Nashville with emerging Nashville. Yeah. And I remember on our opening match, the supporters, or your kind of super fans, you know, there are all these different groups, kind of all that are all organized under the banner of the back line, but they're, you know, 7, 8, 10 different subgroups there, but they were all, you know, I had to go down and talk to a group down in where the expo buildings are, and all the supporters were kind of doing their pregame stuff right outside that, and there were all these different groups of very, you know, different demographics of people, you know, young, old, Black, Hispanic, white, you know, and all kind of mixed together. And I thought to myself, this is what Megan, this is what I believe that she hoped for in this. And I actually said that in the group. I did not know she was there, but she was there. Aww. So it was nice, because you know, I do think she deserves credit for it.
Well, and thinking about her dynamicism.
Yes,
right?
good.
You know,
that's a hard word. Yeah.
Thinking about that, like, and what she would have brought to a room, you know, through that. I don't know. I think it would have been harder without her presence there. So I think it's great to give her.
But I was saying too, like, I think anytime I've had a friend come in from out of state and they've gone to an SC game, they're all blown away by like how diverse the crowd is. I mean, you've got you've got I mean, it's not like going to a Titans game or a Predators game or a baseball game.
No.
It is truly. I mean, I think it's super exciting. There's like always a ton of energy. You know, I live right by the stadium, so I've kind of watched it go up. But it is a great product that I think the city is. I think even people that didn't like soccer have gotten sucked into it.
Well, I'm hugely gratified by hearing repeatedly people. I'm not sure quite what they expect when they go, but almost to the person, they come find me, or when I kind of cross paths with them, they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't quite know what to expect," but one of the great sporting experiences I've ever had.
Yeah.
One of the most fun things that I've ever done. And I mean, it's music to my ears, it's because, we didn't know for sure.
Right.
And, I thought it might take some time to really kind of build it up. And it did. We played our first match February 29th, 2020. That was like 10 days before the country shut down.
Right.
And it was like, that was a difficult period of time, but we made it through it. But I like to go to the matches an hour and a half early, and I just walk around.
Yeah.
I kind of have a path I take. I guess it's a superstition or ritual or whatnot, but I'm not there to see anything in particular.
Right.
But I really do enjoy seeing the eclectic nature of who's there. And
Soccer Moses is one of the greatest mascots.
Well, and he is a very eclectic guy. He's a very capable guitarist. He's a barber. He's got his own beers. He's talk about an entrepreneur. He does Mapco commercials. And he's iconic now.
Yeah. Well, as a founding MLS member.
Oh yeah, part of the first string.
Yeah, the first string. Yeah,
yeah. You're a first stringer.
I'm a first stringer. Yeah, I'm very, very thankful that it's here.
I borrow Angie's tickets a lot.
That's true.
Good. Yeah.
You kind of bring it to So I currently live really close to the soccer stadium, so I get to walk to games, which is really cool. But talk a little about the site itself. The fairgrounds has been there was a big push kind of before the recent mayoral election to at least vote on some sort of proposal to potentially bring NASCAR back to the fairgrounds. NASCAR used to be in the fairgrounds a long time ago. I know you have been a critic of that proposal. There's a new proposal called the Cumberland Yards by this group called the Fairgrounds Preservation Partners. Their vision seems to involve affordable housing, green space, maybe electric vehicle racing. What are your thoughts on that proposal, the vision for what you would love to see at the fairgrounds as kind of the neighbor to Geodis Park?
Well, I would say first of all, I knew nothing about Cumberland Yards. People ask, John, are you behind this? Are you involved in this? And the answer is no. Yeah. I mean, I've never met the people that organize that, and I'm not against racing either. My problems with the NASCAR type of proposal stem from the fact from a number of things. First of all, I think it's a terrible deal for the taxpayer, and I thought we set a new precedent for the way deals were to be done over there. And the former mayor, did a completely different, basically, I'm responsible for paying back 100% of the stadium development. And, and to basically have another proposal, another 30,000 seat stadium next to a 30,000 seat stadium, which would be competitive, for, concerts and other kind of things, and basically have the city give it to them, with help from the state was like, okay, wait a minute. I mean, first of all, I don't think that what I understand about the financial situation, the way it was presented was credible. And so I did think the taxpayers were very much on the hook there. And so I thought that needed to be said.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I thought we set a precedent for how things should be done. And if the city wants to give them a stadium, then pay for mine.
Right.
Or it was like I don't understand that. And then on top of it, you end up with a situation where if the city were on the hook, then they're going to give it preferential treatment. It's like, wait, stop. I would have never signed up for the deal I signed up for to know that was going to happen.
Right.
Having said that, if the city wants to continue racing kind of in its current form and spend some money to upgrade the track, which there's no doubt if the city wants to do that, it needs to happen, then okay.
Right.
Then I said since the beginning I'm not against racing. I'm not against racing. I am against that deal because for the reasons I just said. I think it's a bad deal for the taxpayer, and if properly vetted would show to that. And I think we set a new precedent, including a community benefits agreement, which includes, the other racing deal purports to have a community benefits agreement, but ours has got like affordable housing. It's going to be worth tens of millions of dollars over time. It's like it's the other one masquerades as something good. Ours has got real substance to it, and if you want to do it, there should be equivalency, across the board in terms of what the city requires.
And there is a lot of construction happening right now, kind of next to the stadium.
Right.
So kind of tell us a little bit about just kind of what that is. I know people are like, I've had people ask like, can I live there?
Well, I think over time, yes. There over the next decade, you're gonna see. On three sides of the stadium, major development. Part of it we leased from the city, and part of our original deal, 10 acres, and then on the Bransford Avenue side, we've been able to acquire that. Market Street, who is kind of, our partner that's really developing this, the people that develop most of the Gulch.
Joe Barker.
Yeah, and Jay Turner, Dirk Melton. Wonderful people, and the Turners were the first people I went to go talk to about joining me in this project, and we had a handshake deal that said, look, if we get this done, we're going to need to develop around it, just because Major League Soccer won't choose us if we don't. I don't know anything about development. I'd like you to lead it. I would just ask that you allow people that invest in the soccer partnership to participate to the degree that they might want to.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
Yeah.
You also asked, about as a citizen of Nashville, I'm glad to see, somebody else come up with another, competing vision for that space. It's not up to me to choose, but I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I found it attractive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we've talked a lot about sports. Just, briefly tell us a little bit about, Ingram Industries, Ingram Content Group, and Lightning Source and Digital Ingram. Things have changed a lot over time. I know that you guys have had to revision lots of processes and systems, but where are these companies now, and where do you see them going in the future?
Well, Ingram Industries is kind of the umbrella of the parent company. Okay. So think about it as mommy or daddy. Yeah. Okay, right? And you got basically three children. You've got a barging company called Ingram Marine Group that my older brother looks after, and barging bulk commodities up and down the river system, and then you've got kind of the content group, and I changed the name, I don't know, probably 15, 20 years ago, from Ingram Book Group to Content Group when digital started happening, because I was like, okay, what is a book when it's in digital form? It's not really a book anymore. It's content.
Right.
So that was really reflective of that. So you've got barges, you got books or content, and then now soccer to a certain piece. And they really, I mean, they fundamentally don't have a lot in common. They're very different. And I've got different stories about how they originated. But, my older brother Orrin and I that run it, I mean, we were born to it's not that we won't sell things, but we're builders of things, right? And builders of businesses and on the marine side, there are opportunities. We've got an acquisition that hopefully will close, in early 24 that allow us to kind of to do some really exciting new things in that space. And in the content space, we've been working over the last decade, expanding physical things we do, digital services we provide. Have really become a pretty fulsome, comprehensive physical and digital services partner to not just downstream from us, like retailers, but I would say we have more business relationships now north of us with publishers, in terms of, our print-on-demand business, a lot of the digital services that we provide for publishers. And the thing I like best about that whole business is we only do well if we help other people do well, right? So, it's not like we got to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. We only do well if we help, people we're servicing do well. And I like that.
Yeah.
And then there's soccer, which I own a piece of it personally, and then the company owns a piece of it. So, we've got a next generation that's kind of coming along that's involved in different pieces, and I certainly think will be involved as long as I'm on this side of the dirt, right? But I look forward to continuing to work there to help things grow and provide value where I can, and work with not only my brother but my kids and his kids to that are interested in it and in what we can do going forward with it.
Yeah. What do you want your legacy, to be?
I think I'll let other people figure that out. I mean, I honestly don't spend a lot of time, thinking about that. I think soccer will be a big piece of it, just due to the kind of the more public-facing nature of it, than some of the other things that we do. But I don't worry about it that much. I guess I hope that people would at some point miss me when I'm gone. How's that?
I think that's actually really good.
Not just my dog,
Right.
But kid's wife, and that the community would say, hey, here was a guy that did a lot of or tried to do a lot of things to make the community better.
Yeah.
Help people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great segue to. Okay. So so lightning round. So
Yeah,
these are
let's
some
do it.
nice, easy, short ones, John.
Sure.
So I think you'll like some of these. Okay, first one: Bitcoin, digital gold, what Charlie Munger liked to call rat poison, or reserving judgment.
I think I would reserve judgment. It doesn't have the full faith and credit of the U.S. government behind it, but it doesn't seem like it's going to go away either. So I don't know. Maybe rat food, not poison.
So obviously, you sound like a big reader. So name of a book that every person should read.
Anybody that's interested in leadership, there's a book, I think it's called The Truth About Leadership by James Coos and Barry Rosner. It's one of the only books I ever read on leadership that gave me goosebumps. It's short, it's easy, but I just knew based on my own experiences that they were right on, and the stuff they talk about was true 100 years ago, is true today, will be true in 100 years. In terms of my go-to as novelist is almost anything Michael Lewis.
I just finished reading Going Infinite.
Oh, I just finished it too.
Finished it this weekend.
And I would love him even if he weren't a guy that I knew at Princeton. He was a year ahead of me,
fun.
and in my eating club or whatever it was. I mean, that was a guy. He was an art history major.
I remember in college
from New Orleans.
Yeah. He was one of my best friends is from New Orleans. I've heard stories, but I remember when I was in college, I thought about investment banking. I remember reading Liar's Poker.
Well, he wrote that, right?
And that's what convinced me not to do it.
Oh, okay.
But it was an incredible story, and the fact that he was an art history major who applies to every firm on Wall Street, gets no jobs, then meets somebody at a dinner party, and he was in Britain.
London. He went to the London School of Economics because he didn't know really what to do next, and he met somebody that got him a job at Salomon Brothers on the trading desk, and that's where that kind of launched his writing career with Liar's
John
Poker.
Goodfriend, I remember was the chairman of Salomon.
Yes,
he was insane.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Animal House on the trading desk. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was in college, I went to Dartmouth undergrad, so I remember reading This Side of Paradise. That was probably one of my top 5 favorite novels in college. So I think it was I think that was like very autobiographical for Fitzgerald.
My favorite. I mean, I love Michael Lewis. The Great Gatsby. This one image in it, the green light at the end of Daisy's dock, and it always spoke to me. And I mean, even as a kid, I remember getting goosebumps, and I didn't understand why. But in Gatsby's mind, it was all about possibilities. Of what this woman. Of course, she wasn't anything like, but the possibility of what she could be, and so I mean, the green light at the end of the doc is really important to me because I think it really coincides with my life purpose about actualizing potential and possibility. I mean, when I see the green light, that's where I'm headed.
Yeah, it reminds me of. I mean, I always go back to Richard Branson's quote, something like life is a lot more fun if you say yes.
Yeah.
and I think that's true. It's like opportunities come your way all the time, and you do need to have you do need to know what to do with them, but at the same time, you also need to be willing to say yes.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. So you're so Nashville if.
Oh, so
you're so Nashville if.
You are so Nashville if you're friendly and helpful to people for no good reason.
Yeah, true. If you could bring back one thing from Nashville past, what would that be?
Probably a little less traffic.
Yeah, good luck.
I think,
Hopefully,
I wish for that.
We'll see some sort of amazing transit solution. I don't know what it will be.
Well, I do think this mayor will try to tackle that, and I think he's smart enough to see, to know the errors of the prior ways and choose a different path. And I look forward to trying to support him.
Too fast and see something that, I think the tunnel prop was like too big of a project. Having looked at the Big Dig in Boston, that was.
I think Mayor O'Connell will be more measured about what he does, and probably somewhat more inclusive in some areas to work on getting a broader buy-in.
I think those are excellent words to describe Mayor O'Connell: measured and inclusive.
And he's really a man who listens. He doesn't necessarily agree with everything, but he listens. He's thoughtful.
He reserves judgment until
he does.
He's very much like tech forward too, which I think is really important for this city.
Yep.
Okay, so who should we do this with next? Is our last one.
Oh my gosh, who should you do this with next? That's a great question. There are a number of people. I think someone like a Bill Haslam is fantastic.
Yeah.
Kerry Mack that's doing Nashville Yards would be an interesting, how he
true.
ended up here. Who else do I think of? I'm not sure, but there are lots of good of good candidates to
well, that's
go
helpful.
with.
And so, finally, what's the best way for our listeners to learn more about, soccer and Nashville SC in particular?
Well, it's interesting. Traditional media, talk radio and whatnot, does not really cover it. You can find out what the Titan had for breakfast, but you don't get a lot of coverage of some of the rest of this, and that's fine. It's really Instagram and Twitter are kind of the news feed and the website.
Yeah.
Or you could you could Google, you'd be part of the backline, the supporter group. I mean, if people are looking at, feeling a desire to belong to something, part of the support group, they have a heck of a good time.
Yes.
At the matches, and and it's all shapes, colors, and sizes.
Yeah, and I mean, very affordable to go to a game.
Particularly there, and that's very intentional. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of different options, but we're want to be respectful for to charge what's appropriate for different areas.
Yeah, it's been great. Well, thank you, John, for joining us today. We are
my pleasure.
So
it's fun. It's who doesn't like talking about themselves, right?
Well, thank you very much, and we thanks for joining us today. We will see you on another episode of Climbing the Charts soon.